Good afternoon. I think we're going to go ahead and get started here. Hopefully everybody can hear me. If we have any questions, we'll be answering those at the end of the webinar because of the broadcast latency that occurs. So feel free to type your questions into the window. We'll address them at the end. So this is the Now Micro late Q1 product update. A little bit about Now Micro. We were founded in 1993 in St. Paul, Minnesota. We're Dell, HP, Lenovo, Intel, Microsoft reseller. We have a number of markets, including local, state government, education, and IoT and edge computing, which is typically sort of visual communications type applications. We help our customers navigate technology to the edge and beyond with purpose-built hardware and manufacturing services. So, you know, a lot of this is about focusing on today on speeds and feeds and things like that, but really we are delivering solutions overall with, you know, purpose-built hardware underlying it. I'm Bernard Carter. A little bit about me. I have an IT infrastructure and development background. I'm the Vice President of Technology at Now Micro. Prior to joining Now Micro, I was a security architect at a Fortune 500. My focuses there were a lot of IT infrastructure, client embedding, vendor security. And my team and my group is focused on delivering solutions with, I guess, double focused on automation, manageability, and security. And if you're looking for my mostly work-related ramblings, you can always find me on Twitter at Spring Failings or contact information on nowmicro.com. So a little bit about our agenda today. We have new shiny devices that we want to share with you. We want to talk about DICE and answer to a lot of pain points that currently exist in both the sort of asset management around devices that are purchased from Now Micro, and then having a single pane of glass inside your relationship with us. I'll give a DICE demo. I also have some other remote solutions demos that'll follow shortly after that with a focus on remote support and vPro. And then we'll have some time for some questions. I don't expect this to take a full hour because I'll continuously talk faster as we go along, but so definitely time for questions at the end. So as we talk about devices, I like to look beyond the speeds and feeds, right? It's not about, you know, the megahertz and, you know, how much RAM it has and the OS is underneath it. There's a lot of considerations that we need to take into account as we discuss devices. I think for embedded purpose-built computing, environment is definitely a big piece. You know, how hot does it get? Is there a circulation? You know, direct sunlight, things like that that could impact the functionality. Second to that would be form factor, especially with video wall solutions, being able to mount, you know, an 8-output video player or a 9-output video player behind the display solution instead of having to run extenders could make a significant difference in the reliability of the system, or even just how long it takes to get installed and be maintained over time. You know, the content type and richness, not all content is built the same. As people explore more 4K solutions, you know, there's definitely a huge divide between these really rich, very video, high bitrate intensive 60 hertz 4K videos and a 4K menu board, right? I mean, they both have their purpose. They're both a type of communication, but that content type and richness really does have an impact on the hardware that needs to be selected. We've been talking to more and more customers and the industry in general about analytics, working with Intel on their 3A initiative with hopefully some announcements in the near future there. Really, this is about that bringing the value and closing the circle on that visual communication. So for example, if I am displaying content, who's looking at it? How long are they looking at it? Was this content better than this content? If you get into even public safety scenarios, knowing how many people actually looked at the content, if your actual content is effective, can make a huge difference on that impact to society in general. So just sort of closing that loop and having that processing either available on the edge or on box, is an important consideration as designing a complete solution. And then reliability and remote maintenance. It's easy to find, like $100 Android stick, and shove it up on a wall and play some content. Very easy. What's not necessarily always easy is managing that stick, knowing that it's secure over time, being able to, update it, do things to it. And I think reliability and remote maintenance is sort of the long tail of cost on these projects. When you look at a project, that hardware purchase, maybe that software purchase that's running on top of it is a piece of the cost, but you really do need to look at if this is expected to have a 3 to 5 year life cycle. Is that device actually maintainable for that period of time? And if we do have to do a truck roll, is it going to cost us, our average $250 to do that? We really need to talk about reliability and how that actually impacts the profitability of the project even. So, going into new devices, I have a whole list here. We're going to go through them individually, actually not in the order I have them in this slide. Talk about a few attributes of each and, sort of where we see the use cases being. Information on all these players is available at nowmicroplayers.com. All those pages should be live for all these devices. You can go through our product selector, search, sort, and see the devices. The first device I'm going to talk about is the NUC 8 CCHK, formerly known as Chaco Canyon. This is one of the most exciting devices for us in a number of years. It is a Celeron-based system with 4 gigabytes of RAM and 64 gigs of storage. It can run Windows and Linux very easily. And I see it as a right-size type player. So since it does support 4K output resolution, you can support things like 4K menu boards and simple 4K video type applications without sort of breaking the bank on the complete solution. So one of our more exciting players, definitely something we've been talking to people about for a while now. It's out, it's available, and something we definitely want to continue talking to people about. It also has some, interesting options here. There's a little port on the front. We're not seeing any third-party ports for the front yet, really, but we expect to see USB ports and serial ports in the future there. Features a Kensington lock, and then a new cable wrapping little thing on the side by the power cable. Other super interesting thing about it, or at least to me, hopefully to you, it has basically the VESA mount integrated into the bottom of the plate. So it has little loops for zip ties. It has DIN mounting screw pattern and a VESA mounting screw pattern all on the bottom, all the screws that come in the box. The companion to that device is our DMP-N 8CCH. We're also calling it the IoT Player Rugged. This device is very similar to the previous Chaco Canyon device, with the addition of an optional serial port that can be put on, and then optional wireless. It's a metal rugged case. We actually think the thermals on this come out really nicely, a little bit cooler than the actual other case. So definitely an exciting addition to our offerings here. We also expect to be able to run Android on this later this year. We're working on technical plans to bring up Android on this as a follow-on to last year's Android project on the NUC 6 CAYH. This will be the successor product, and definitely want to talk to anybody interested in that about evaluation and needs. Going forward, we have the new NUC 8 commercial SKUs. These will be available as a 3-year SKU. The NUC 7 devices that are currently in the market, and we continue to currently move, there's a huge overlap between these two models, so no rush to move immediately. The real huge difference here is the addition of the Thunderbolt port on the back. Otherwise, the I/O is essentially the same. So if you had those two, NUC 7 and a NUC 8 commercial device side by side, you wouldn't probably notice a difference besides that one port there. There's a little bit of differences underneath. The i3 device is faster, the i5 device is faster, the i7 device is faster. Definitely excited to see people take advantage of some of that performance as these devices are released this year. and it'll be with us for quite some time. I had the privilege this year of going to a NUC's Element event out at Intel, and one of the things we talked about is this sort of new modular type idea. NUC Elements, the CMC R1A BB, quite the mouthful, is essentially a fanless NUC type device. What's different about this and is that it basically takes a daughter board for compute inside. So there's a compute element board from Celeron all the way to i7, some vPro and non-vPro options as well. I think there's 7 SKUs total, and those boards can be placed inside this one chassis so that you can have a range of performance in a fanless scenario. This is fanless, very slim, very easily fit behind stuff, and then also comes with port protectors. So you can plug all those ports with little rubber protectors, which gives it some dust and I think a little bit of moisture resistance, but primarily dust resistance. Super excited about this. There's also some other follow-on models coming this year, including one with 6 video outputs. Stay tuned for an announcement on the release of that from us. So Now Micro is a Dell, HP, Lenovo reseller, especially to state and local government, which is typically endpoint devices, Chromebooks, things like that. We've developed a strong relationship with Lenovo recently, extending into last year, but more recently, and we're really excited about the release of the Lenovo Nano players. These players have, if you've seen one in person, they're very, very tiny. The performance is, within expectations. It's, the same kind of processors as used to with Intel NUCs, but just some couple extra options here. So if we look at the one on the left, it is the Lenovo Nano player. It has a fan. It's available from a Celeron all the way up to an i7. And then on the right would be the Nano IoT player. That is a fanless design, and that is available from a Celeron all the way up to an i5. We just put these on our website with full product information this week. So if you have any interest in these, take a look and see how it might fit your needs. We also have an update to our DMPS 2200 device. It's a device we've carried for a number of years, originally under the IoT Player 4K moniker. This is our smallest media player. It is absolutely tiny. You can get a sense of scale by looking at the USB ports on the front and the Ethernet and HDMI port on the back. It is a tiny player. Running the actual same SoC that's in the Chaco Canyon device I started with, so very well-defined performance. It does have a fan, but it is the most tiny, compact player we carry. This is actually, the Leva Q device we are replacing with the Q2, which is a Gemini Lake chipset. So this is an N4000 based. Last year, we sort of previewed and started talking to people about our Edge cluster device. Our Edge cluster device is a picture in the next slide, but is part of our Edge computing initiative. So we started by releasing VDD specification, visual data device specification devices, I believe about 2 years ago. And these are edge of premise workloads. So when you look at sort of a modern digital signage, visual communication type workload, what we typically see is a need to do some kind of caching, transcoding, AI, bare metal device restoration, which is my typical demo where I restore a system very quickly using one of our VDD appliances, or even monitor alerting. More recently, I think with the 3A initiative and the rise of video analytics as the close the loop on effectiveness of communication, that is typically difficult to run on box. So being able to run those camera feeds back to an edge type appliance and do that consolidation, that reading, and then only sending up a little bit to the cloud as necessary has been an impactful piece of implementations involving video analytics. I don't expect that that need to lessen over time. If you look at Some of Intel's work in that area. There's the Retail Node Initiative, which is essentially bringing containers to an edge appliance to be able to do this. We've been experimenting with that, doing a little bit of POCs internally, and then helping customers with their software and their stacks get these solutions, out there working, deployable, and tested. So we did a crazy thing. We took 5 NUCs and put it in a box. Not, when I first started showing this to people were like, well, why would you want to do that? You're not going to hook up all these displays to it. Well, no, I'm not hooking up displays to this. Our initial use case for this was a container workload. So imagine being able to get, in this case, 20 cores. This is an i7 NUC 7 based device. So there's 4 cores per board. We have 20 cores in there. I think we have 16 gigs of memory per board, all the way up to, we could go up to 32. So imagine 128 gigabytes of RAM, 20 cores in an edge workload type appliance. You could do a lot of video analysis consolidation. You could do a lot of AI type work as well. So we've been showing this off, talking to customers about container workloads in particular, and I think there is a use case for these types of appliances going forward where a server may not fit from either a form factor or cost perspective, or even sometimes a performance perspective. Intel NUC can, based solution like this edge cluster can deliver that performance at the edge. We also put a window on the side, so a little non-micro logo on the side too. That's actually the devices we're announcing today. So some of these have sort of been trickling out throughout the quarter. We wanted to sort of wrap it all up in a bow and sort of send people to nonmicroplayers.com so you could get full specs and get that information. If you need some, any kind of roadmap presentation or want to talk to us further, feel free to reach out. Definitely would love to talk about how we see each of these players slotting into, your device usage going forward. Next, I'm going to talk about video wall testing. It's something that we've been sort of slowly rolling out over the last couple of years. We had the privilege and opportunity to install a video wall system into our facility and some large format commercial displays. We've actually used that to be able to provide video wall testing services to our customers. The general idea here is we start, it's a journey, hence the road. We want to understand your content, resolution, and form factor needs. Just sort of like, let's figure out what kind of hardware might work for you. Then we typically give you some options, right? So there's decision points based on performance, future proofing, and cost. But here's the options based on what we know about your content, where you want to go, where you want to be in the future. This is what we'd recommend, a set of systems. At that point, you'd make some decisions, hey, this is, we might be a little ambitious on the performance or future proofing. Let's scale it back a little bit. Hey, we could maybe use some extenders or, find some more space to put this device somewhere else, and maybe it doesn't have to be behind the wall. And then when possible, we'd like to do some testing. So we've been very successful in testing customer solutions in our lab. So we have a variety of lab equipment that we can put the build of materials together for a video wall system based on one of our standard platforms. Test your content, either send you a video. In the past, people have come into the office. I wouldn't recommend that now for various reasons. But we do some testing, and then now you have something you can trust, right? So when you go to production, actually do deployment, actually purchase a device, the content's going to run on your system as advertised, helping you and maybe your end user customers be more successful. Looking at non-micro video wall options, we're still looking at anywhere from a 1U all the way up to 4U in size. I have up to 18 video outputs. There's some, depending if they need to be synchronized or not, there's probably a little bit of wiggle room there. Typically with like an NVIDIA Quadro-based solution, you'd be looking at 16 outputs. We also are releasing in the next quarter the DMPU 1200Q. That will be a new high-performance rack and wall mountable form factor for up to 8 video output solutions. The graphics adapter we're primarily using in our 1U to provide 8 outputs was discontinued last year. We've helped a number of our customers transition to new platforms, but we still heard the need that there was, this needs to be something like a 1U and mountable in a sleeve or in a rack behind the displays and be able to power those solutions. So we did find a technological solution to that. We are releasing that in the next quarter. Unfortunately, I don't have pictures today. We have an unpainted chassis currently, but we'll get some pictures and up on the website and hopefully send an update to people that are interested. Switching directions entirely from speeds and feeds and back to enabling solutions. I want to talk about DICE. DICE is a single pane of glass inside Now Micro. We're providing up-to-date and extensive information on what you purchased from us. We're giving you real-time data on devices when they enter Now Micro production. We have an easy-to-use interface. You can export, so on and so forth. And we have API and device information via REST and SOAP interfaces. So I'm actually going to do a DICE demo here. So we're going live. So if we look at DICE, this is my Acme Corporation dashboard. We have a couple additions that are newer here. The first is our device warranty look. So for Dell, HP, Lenovo, and our Intel, our Now Micro OEM branded products, which are typically Intel NUC based, we now have a device warranty roadmap here where we can actually say on warranty 1 year expired or unknown. So unknown would be sort of devices that we don't have a manufacturer feed to or we did not develop or produce ourselves. The idea here is that you get more information about what your fleet looks like, what your rotation might be. You'd also see the latest devices that were gone through production. So as they were produced, maybe not shipped to you, you'd see that as well also with completed orders and open orders. If I look at device table here, so give that a second to load, we see the last devices produced by Now Micro for Acme Corporation. They're mostly Dell Optiplexes. We can expand this view. In our production facility, we have, call it semi-automated, but essentially we're collecting somewhere near 100 data points on every system that comes through prior to imaging it. This information goes all the way down to things like firmware revision and BIOS version, even the serial numbers of DIMMs if it's available. We use this information in a few different ways. I mean, one, we want to provide it to you. If you have questions around, how many Toshiba drives you have in your environment, you'd be able to answer those questions yourself. We also see a use case that doesn't come up very often, but is impactful in the case of needing to do firmware updates for recall purposes or advisories from a manufacturer. So for example, if we got an advisory from a manufacturer that a particular firmware revision of a drive needed to be updated, we'd actually have some actionable information to communicate back to you of, we shipped these 100 devices or these 5 devices with this firmware. Here's the update procedure that needs to be done. Use your RMM tool or let us help you, script that out so that you can get those updated and sort of avert the threat in the field. We're giving you other actionable information like the serial number and asset tag that's in the BIOS as we put in the BIOS, the image that was on it, the warranty SKU, even going down to motherboard information as well. BIOS version, very interesting for people, and then MAC address. We also combine that with the information from our ordering system. So you'll see your PO number, it's an order, it hasn't been fulfilled, we can see where it was shipped to. If the device had been serviced, we'd see, some RMA numbers here, hopefully just one, if any at all. And then if there was tracking via UPS or FedEx, this would be a clickable link to go right to the website and be able to load that. You can also create a ticket here. So if I create a ticket, it's going to fill out as much information as it has. It's going to have me enter my first name and last name and description of my problem. I click submit. Now I have a ticket. It's the easiest way of getting a single device warranty ticket into us. Obviously, we still accept those over phone and email, but if you want to self-service, this is a really easy way of getting all that information in one spot. For the purchasers or people that are interested more in an order-oriented view. We have the same information just from order instead of device. So from the device, I can, sort of spider into the order. From the order, I can spider into the devices. So if I look at this invoice, this is an invoiced order from last year, it looks like, and I can see all the devices that were on that order, right? That's great. I can also do things like change the order of these columns. I can go to the column chooser, and I could, show the baseboard manufacturer instead, add that here. I can remove columns, and then I can export this view exactly how I want to see it. So I could export all the data from this order right here, or any of these table views really, or I can export just selected rows if I use the select interface here. These same things are available here for all the order information. So if you wanted to just export raw order information, you'd be able to do that as well. It's going to give me a little Excel spreadsheet here that I could open, but I'm not going to. And now I have all the information. This is really about you being able to answer your questions and self-service as necessary. Anything that's involving order information or device information. Obviously, our inside sales team is always there for you to be able to answer more complex questions or whatnot, but we find over time, based on customer requests, that they just kind of want to answer their own questions. We give you an interface to do that. The other primary usage of DICE, this sort of basic device information, is to get that either in your asset management system or use it as your asset management system. So I'm going to show you a couple more things, and then we're going to talk more about that stuff. You can also see a list of your support tickets here. I'm signed in as me, so we can open up and see our ticket information. In fact, this is my old laptop, and I was having a problem with the audio. This serial number will populate in a second. It was closed. It turns out it was a software problem because I'm terrible or something. But you can get information about all your tickets here. Again, sortable, exportable. You can still create a ticket here, fill out information. So that's DICE. I'm going to go back into Mr. Presentation here and then talk about DICE Plus. So DICE Plus is a new set of features. It's a new tier of DICE that has an expansion of sort of the usage. We currently have customers using DICE as it sits today as their asset management system. It's, they buy devices from us. They just want to know what they bought, when the warranties expire, serial numbers, MAC addresses, they're done. What we found is there's a need for a little bit more. Our two focuses here are DICE Live, which is real-time actionable information on devices. Things like what's currently in the device. Did we put more RAM in it, remove RAM? What graphics adapters in there? What version of the graphics driver is there? What drivers are installed? What software is installed? What versions? And then usage information. Is this thing actually on? Has it checked in recently? Have I seen the thing? And then expanded asset management focused features. So we're looking at more warranty information, which I already showed you, and then importing other asset records. So maybe there's some non-micro devices you want to import. Maybe you want to get your displays in there or other fixed assets. Maybe you want to put your car in there. I don't know. I'm not going to judge. And then editable fields. We are releasing DICE Plus in a few days on April 1st. April Fool's Day, I guess. And I'm going to give you a short demo in our staging environment here. So I'm just going to minimize this window, drag over a Firefox window, and I'm going to make that bigger so you guys don't need your reader glasses on. And we're looking good. So the main addition here with the DICE Plus tier is DICE Live. It's a new tab in our device information. This information is being fed by a small lightweight agent that can be configured to check in at any basic interval. Our typical suggestion to be once a day. So what's interesting about this is I can see when this device is last sort of been able to contact me, which means now I know if that device is on. If somebody's actually using it, that could be actionable for like rotation, for example. I need a list of all the machines that have a warranty that's expiring in the next year, but have been online and active in the last 30 days. Because I don't want to replace systems that that aren't on or not active. Or I want to be able to see, hey, these devices haven't been active in 30 days. let's go chase them down. Somebody didn't report that this sign's down somewhere, or this system over here running a kiosk is turned off for some reason. So we have this agent, we're reporting back some information on a periodic basis, and we're displaying it to you and combining it with this other information that you're used to around devices. So we have drive utilization, memory utilization, CPU utilization. I think the more interesting one for us would be the actual graphics adapters in the system. So in this case, it's a laptop with Intel integrated graphics and an RTX 2070. I can see the driver version and release date. So hey, turns out we need to update this one because we've seen a bug with this version. Now we have an actionable plan to make. We can see the display resolution, that this is the currently running display when it was attached, which since it's a laptop, it's kind of how this works, but we can see the display resolution and refresh rate of that device. We get the plug and play device ID too, all that fun stuff. We can see the memory, how many DIMMs, manufacturer serial number. So if a system was changed over time, we'd be able to say, hey, we upgraded these systems to 8 gigs of RAM. Let's go find the ones that we didn't and get those upgraded so that we can make these last another year. Now I have another piece of actionable information to solve my problems. Graphics adapters, we have higher fidelity graphics adapter information. So we can see this is a Intel Wi-Fi 6. We actually have the IP address, that's bound to it. We also are planning to have the public IP bound here so that you could do some geolocation stuff or know if it's inside your premise or not. Still got a couple more days to implement things here. Operating system information. So this is running Windows 10 Enterprise. We can see the version, it's 1909. We can see when it was installed. This again goes back to if you're on support scenarios, I want to be able to answer when somebody calls, maybe, hey, what are you running? Is this the current version that we're actually supporting? Is this 1607 and it's a client system? Hey, we need to get that upgraded. Being able to sort of answer your own questions about a system without interrogating the user to go, pick and check and choose through things is important. I think the other important thing here is you may already have a management system like ConfigMan or an RM system, where I think a lot of the stuff ends up failing or maybe not serving all of its purpose is they have all this information, but combining it is hard. So giving you sort of a single pane of glass into a device that you can see, hey, here's when I order it, here's when the warranty's done, here's what it looks like right now. Here's the processor, here's the software that's installed. I have a searchable list of, I can look for Visual Studio stuff and see what versions are on here. Having that all in one place is a powerful paradigm for actually solving problems when somebody's calling you, or when you're trying to quickly work through a project or quickly work through an emergency. So this is the applications view, and we're also doing the same thing for drivers. We are going to be filtering out most of the inbox drivers, but in this case, we should be able to see in NVIDIA, if I can spell correctly, which I can't. Okay, so then we can see the NVIDIA driver here that we can see in the other pane. So we can sort of answer those questions about what drivers actually are installed here. Going down to storage, the same disk information that we typically see, but now it's live. We'll get the disk utilization isn't showing up on this one for some reason. And then the normal system information, which doesn't normally change. In the case of laptops, we are showing additional battery information. So if the battery is reporting a failed state to Windows, we'll see that. And then if it has a Dell HP Lenovo battery, we'd actually see the battery model number here. So you can maybe, for example, the battery status is bad. What battery is it? I can order it, get that part in right away, or even make a ticket with Intel Micro to have it replaced. Easy peasy, lemon squeezy. So that's Dice Plus. We're really excited about it. Definitely want to talk more about anybody that's interested in it. And we build this stuff based on customer feedback and customer needs. So if there's something here that you're like, oh man, if it had this one more feature, this would be the greatest thing in the universe, I'd love to talk about that, because I love building things that makes people happy and makes their focus on what they need to get done happen and possible. Now Micro typically focuses on that device experience, delivering the device ready to rock, delivering whatever it is we're delivering to you technology-wise, ready to go, automated, secure, reliable. We want you to be able to focus on your mission, because almost bet 100% of the time your mission isn't delivering devices. It's about delivering that another complete solution that's built on top of one other device, or delivering, educational materials, delivering visual content, delivering communication. You're about that, and we're about this. So going back to Mr. Slide Deck here. I found this fancy iceberg slide and I had to use it. I'm calling this the asset management journey, right? So, at the top, the tip of the iceberg, you might have information in disparate systems, right? We have all this information, it might take a long time to combine it, but it might exist. But the basic sort of shallow level of this is I want some easy warranty information for active assets. What's active? How do I combine that with my warranty information to get a rotation report for next year? Hey, it looks like I have a lot of Windows laptops that come out of warranty next year. Let's get a list. I know what models they are now, and find have Now Micro assist me with getting the new models set up, so I know exactly what I need to buy from here and not spend weeks trying to report that information out. In-depth hardware information's kind of sitting below that. I want to pull deep hardware stats to prioritize hardware rotation based on OS support, speed, and capacity, right? I want to be able to say, I want to rotate all the systems I have with 4 gigs of RAM. 4 gigs of RAM is just not good enough for a Windows system now. I want 8 gigs of RAM on that client compute device. Deeper than that, usage information. Which assets are actually what's actually on and being used? If I'm providing 1,000 desktops to my users, in 3 years, do I need to replace 1,000 desktops? Do I need to replace 1,100 because we grew? Do I need to replace 800 because a lot of these users end up getting laptops? When you're making rotation decisions around IT assets, it's important to know what's actually being used so you don't overbuy. The point is not to give you another desktop that you put in the corner and never turn on because you have a laptop and you bring that home at night. It's really about buying the right equipment and the right form factors that's going to be used so that you are a good steward of your IT assets in general. And then, going even deeper, that sort of reporting journey of correlating warranty usage and hardware information to make rotation decisions. I know I talked about it like 6 times, but I think it's one of the most powerful ideas here around Dice Plus is how do I make this whole process of knowing that I need to rotate assets on some kind of periodic basis, whether it be because of performance or OS support, speed, whatever warranty, whatever it is, I need to make that process as smooth as possible and spend the least amount of time on that because I got other things I got to do. Like we're setting up remote access for 10,000 people or, figuring out a disaster recovery plan when I can't go to the office. Like we got to get this other work out of the way so that we can get to what's important. So I have some dice slides in here. It turned out my dice demos are working, so we're all good there. Want to talk a little bit about remote solutions. We typically are building what we call focus building blocks, right? So we have a number of solutions built around sort of the idea of giving you things that let you automate processes, right? Whether it be Dice Plus, we've been talking about Configurator, which can help with field customization and deployment, and a lot of people use as an out-of-box experience for Windows 10. Image Sync, where we can actually give you a remote, branch office imaging scenario that may not be possible otherwise. And then Intel vPro, which is the next thing I'm going to really talk about here. So, Intel vPro. Intel vPro is a technology that is included on, I have a whole, hour-long demo slide deck demonstration of vPro, but essentially, it's a feature that's in some Intel processor-based devices. i5 and above. There's some scenarios where i3s can happen with desktop systems, but essentially you may already be buying vPro-enabled systems. If you're not, it might be something worth looking into because it enables these really interesting remote support scenarios. So when all my users are inside my building, everything's typically pretty good, right? Like if I have ConfigMan and I don't have and they're not on I don't need VPN, like we can do stuff, we can contact things. Maybe my RMM solution works fine if I have something else like Intune or whatnot. When they're outside of the office, some of this stuff gets a little fuzzy, right? Obviously there's the hybrid Intune config man scenario, which is one way to solve this. There's things like always on VPN and direct access that can help you be able to manage those systems remotely. But what happens if like you're always on VPN or remote direct access is the problem? What are you gonna do now? How do I support this user? So vPro really does let you have remote secure access to these devices from a hardware level remotely without physical access. So we can do things like hard to reset, power on, reboot to Pixie, even do some reimages over the internet. If you were really, really bored and had a lot of time, you could reimage a Windows system this way. I think most important would be the remote triage sort of first call resolution type scenarios where somebody's remote, maybe they're traveling, maybe they're just working at home because that's what we do now. How do I get enough information about their system to help them? And then in the case of sort of digital signage, remote communication type stuff, how do I reduce truck rolls, right? How do I fix stuff without having somebody roll out and spend the $250 to $500 that's probably going to cost me? So I have a demo for that. I'm going to figure out where the demo went. Here's the demo. Okay. So I'm using one of our tools to sort of do this, but what's interesting is this system, I'm connected over a software agent here. It's actually sitting next to me. Usually I do this demo from the office and the system's at my house. Today I'm broadcasting from my basement, so the system's next to me. But the server I'm actually communicating with is actually in, this is a Azure hosted VM, I think in Ohio. So this is over the internet. I'm using a software agent. I can see my system. I have a funny meme on the desktop, which is funnier if I was in the office downloading cat memes, but you'll forgive me. I'm also able to connect via the hardware here. So when I click that hardware connect here, I can see Intel AMT connected. It drew a little bit slower. This is actually literally what's coming off the back of the HDMI port on the back of this Intel NUC device. So this system could be blue screened. This system could be at a bias screen. It could be anywhere, and I would be able to see exactly what's coming off the back of the port here. This is a really powerful way of troubleshooting OS level problems at the hardware level. If you're looking at the back end here, I can connect. This is actually a small little web server essentially connected that I'm connected to in the back of the system, and I can see that the system's powered on. I could even, as long as it's plugged in, I could actually power it up even. I could wake up the OS. I could, make the OS go to standby. I could reboot to Pixie, reboot to power BIOS. I'm going to reset to BIOS in this case. I'm going to click OK. It's doing that. Hey, guess what? We can go over here and do a hardware connect. Looking at my screen here, it's still actually rebooting, so it's going to take a second here. Oh, here's my BIOS logo. Don't normally see that with a remote management tool. And then now I'm inside the BIOS of the system. I can actually change, hey, it turns out the user says their fans are too loud. I could change the fans to be quieter. I have some options here. Actually, there we go. My mouse is slightly off, I think, which is causing me a little bit of a problem. But going back over here, we can see things like, we can see, remote desktop primary display. We can see user consent settings, power policy, so on and so forth. We can also see hardware information. So if I wanted to know, hey, the user's saying this system isn't bootable, I could go here and say, hey, this SSD is gone. I'm guessing it's a bad SSD. We actually need to repair this. Versus saying, oh, it's just a BIOS message that said hit any key to continue, but they don't know how to read hit any key to continue. So maybe I'll just hit any key to continue for them. Now I solved my problem without having to roll a TAC or do anything here. Same kind of information you typically see in our DICE system, right? So you can see the processor, BIOS version, baseboard, the memory modules, so on and so forth. We can see our network settings, how it's connected. If it was connected via wireless, we'd also see that. We could maybe help a little bit with some of those problems remotely. And a number of other, crazy fun things in here. And also, we have a remote desktop interface we could then connect to here. Click on something. Yeah, my mouse is just slightly off, unfortunately, there. But So that's Intel vPro. The overall idea here is we wanted to show how this technology can be used to remote triage and help customers or end users with their devices, whether they be a client computing device or a digital signage type system, embedded system. There actually are a lot of options to be able to support them. This is actually connected, to that VM in Azure over a Sierra connection. So anywhere this machine is, as long as there's an internet connection, it's going to connect back. I'm able to see and connect to it and remotely manage it. Let's see. So Intel vPro. Talk about solution blocks. So we're right on time for the thank you. Thank you for listening to me for about 50 minutes here. I'm going to take a look at the questions here and see what we have. So the first question was, how is the check-in period frequency determined on the endpoint to Dice Plus? Is it a one-time setup or can it be easily changed after deployment? It's actually changeable after deployment. We're actually pulling it from the portal as part of, we're pulling it from Dice as a configurable option. So by default, it's 24 hours. Our dev systems are set up, I think, every 5 minutes or 2 minutes, just so that we can really quickly iterate through the software. So that is a configurable option. Thank you for the question. Do we have any more questions on the webinar? I'm going to give that maybe one-ish more minute. Well, thank you for coming. If you have any questions or want to know more about our solutions, definitely visit nowmicro.com and nowmicroplayers.com. You can follow me on Twitter at Spring Failings. I'm guessing we're going to be doing more and more of these kind of webinar type activities. So take a look out for an upcoming schedule of a variety of topics under our Tech Connect banner. We'll be resuming those pretty soon, just all remote. And definitely want to hear more about your problems and your needs. So thank you. No more questions. So you have 10 minutes of your time back and have a great afternoon.